Welcome in to Seahawks Today Live. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we are going to go over the latest Seattle Seahawks news and rumors. There is a new mock draft from ESPN's Todd McShay. We'll tell you who McShay has the Seahawks taking. Also, we will get an update on the Seahawks coaching staff, as a couple of Seahawks staff members are candidates for coordinator jobs around the National Football League. We'll tell you where those things stand. We have not one, but two live Q&A rumors mailbags today. Get your questions in. Use the hashtag Seahawks or Super Chat to jump to the front of the line to get on the mailbags on the show. And also, it is mock draft season here on Seahawks Today. I have my second mock draft for your Seattle Seahawks. And what's different about this one is we do have some trades involved. So we'll go through all 7 rounds and make adjustments as needed when we get to that coming up in just a little while from right now. This is our build-up portion of the show where we encourage you guys to get in the chat and chime in. Myself, Jeremy Chugg's in the house. Shout out your city where you're watching from today. Jeremy, how we doing, man?
Feeling pretty good. Off season, ready to get to some warmer weather, get some tan. Jeremy, I'm looking a little ghostly today, but
yeah,
right, ready to get a little tan on. Ready for it to get a little warmer.
Oh yeah. We're here in Dallas, Texas, here at the Chat Sports Studios, and I cannot wait for it to get warm and be nice out, and where I don't have to be drinking a cold beer inside.
Oh yeah,
enjoy myself. There's nothing like
hanging out at the village pool. Maybe, I don't know.
Right. There's nothing like being outside with a cold beer in hand. I can tell you that right now. I'm drinking Coors Light today. What are you drinking, everybody? Here, it's happy hour, as it always is on these Wednesday afternoons here on Seahawks Today. I got 29 people right now watching. Tyson's the first one to tell me where he's watching from. Tyson is in Portlandia. Did you ever see that show, Portlandia?
No, I did not.
That was a very good show. It was on, what was it, Sci-Fi Channel, something like that? Several years ago. Shout out your city. Tell us where you guys are watching from today, and we'll shout you out here on the show as we get things started. Also, with plenty of draft conversation ahead today, talking about Todd McShay's mock draft.
Yeah.
I'll give my mock draft. I want to know from you guys, name a player the Seahawks should draft this year. I have plenty of names that I'll discuss and go through, but this is your chance to chime in, as I see Vasquez in Kingsville. Christopher Bryson's here from Spokane. Jeremy,
Hey-o.
What say you? Who do you think? I know you've been watching closely this draft stuff. Who do you think would be a good fit for this Seahawks team? And I'm not even saying necessarily even first-round guys. Just looking across the board, who do you like this draft you think would be good for Seattle?
Somebody who I like, sleeper at the middle linebacker position. I know you have Jordan Brooks, likely going to be at least a little hobbled coming back from an injury to start this next season. I really like Dalen Hayes out of Washington State. A great coverage linebacker, had a lot of production in the Pac-12. I think he could be a sneaky pick that you get in the second round who could start day one for you. Another guy who I think, not sleeper, but middle round pick. I watched a lot of them. Obviously, we have a couple UT fans in the office with Coop and Big Tex. But Keandre Coburn.
Yeah.
The defensive tackle out of Texas. If you have time, go watch Keandre Coburn's highlights against Oklahoma this year in the Red River rivalry. You were there, so you know.
Oh, yeah.
Texas beat them up. They beat them up front, and Keandre Coburn had a field day with that Oklahoma offensive line.
They were physical.
Probably some of his best tape. If you really want to see what he can do at the next level, I think that could be a guy that you get in the third round. So.
Yeah. Let's see. Got Kingsville, Texas checking in. Brenton's checking in from my phone. We got Cam Smith says Brenton. Vasquez says Carter, Anderson, and Wilson. Syjan says, sup, everyone. We haven't even got to the Super Chat menu yet, and already got a Super Chat from Elijah. Elijah, come forth. Elijah says, $5 Super Chat. What do you think about picking a top cornerback with the number 5 pick to make the Seahawks a top 3 passing defense? I really like Eli Ricks. Elijah, thank you for that $5 Super Chat. We'll show you the Super Chat menu here in just a second, but let me answer this question, and Chugs can answer it too. I look at this Seahawks team. I think there's bigger priorities in the cornerback position. Is it a position of need? Yes, it is. but I don't think it's a top 5 draft pick position of need necessarily. I would take care of that with some other picks, so I don't like the idea of that. I mean, you look at what they did. Tariq Woolen looks like one of the best corners in the NFL, and Kobe Bryant, I think, is really going to develop too. I like the direction they're headed with this secondary, the future of it. To me, the cornerback position you do need to take care of, but not necessarily at 5. That's how I feel, Jeremy.
Yeah, and honestly, Eli, just from like kind of looking at different draft boards, looking at Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, a bunch of different guys where they have these guys ranked, Eli Ricks, not a first-round pick.
Right, that too.
Eli Ricks, you could definitely get him, in my opinion, 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
I don't think any of the corners are going to go within the top 10.
And if I'm the Seahawks, I'm not drafting corner early because this is such a deep corner draft. Everybody that's been following this draft, all the guys who are scouting, all the Mel Kiper, Todd McShays of the world, they think that there are at least 6 or 7 guys who are first-round talents at cornerback. And then on. There's a bunch of guys in this draft. Devin Witherspoon has been thrown around.
Right.
Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., all guys who are really good and who could make a really good impact. That's why if I'm Seattle, I wait until that 2nd round and get the best corner available.
So the top 2 corners in the draft, Joey Porter Jr., Christian Gonzalez. Chugs, I don't know how you feel, but from what I've seen of these projections, it doesn't seem like too many people are convinced that either one's going to be a top 10 pick. So if you're Seattle, top 5, let alone Eli Ricks, just anybody for that matter, I think is a stretch. And maybe that 20th selection you take a corner, but no one's projected to be
I think
top
it's
10.
almost that like reverse psychology of like everybody's like, oh, there's so many good corners. Why should I take one early? And I think that's why you're like, Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., both really good cornerbacks. But there's a lot of debate on who the number 1 quarterback is. A lot of people think it might be that Devin Witherspoon kid out of Illinois.
Yeah.
He's really tall and really lengthy.
Can't forget about Keely Ringo from Georgia, too.
Cam Smith from Southern Carolina. So there's a lot of guys.
And Brenton's been talking about Cam Smith.
Yeah, Cam Smith out of South Carolina. There's a lot of guys that could get into that, first-round cornerback range. That's why I'm like, I don't know.
Looks like we owe the DK song.
Oh, yeah. Chomping, Carroll's chomping, Geno passes, no one stopping. DK, touchdowns all day, he rolls.
This might be a sore subject for Jeremy, but we'll bring it up anyway. Did the Eagles get robbed in the Super Bowl after the holding call that I believe was the right call that they made in the moment? We even saw James Bradbury admit that. This has been an ongoing discussion all week in the office. Jeremy, as the people get it in the comments section, go ahead and state your case about that moment.
You can't make that call in that moment. I'm sorry, you can't. You can't. It's like calling a carry in the last 20 seconds of the NBA Finals.
No, it's not equivalent to a carry.
Yes.
Oh, a carry? No. I thought it was the equivalent to.
It's like calling a 3-second lane violation in the Game 7 of the NBA Finals with 20 seconds left. Yeah, of course, maybe the center was standing there for 4 or 5 seconds, and it should be that call, but are you calling a 3-second violation in the last 20 seconds of a game? I don't think so.
So Vasquez says they sold themselves. Okay. Interesting.
That almost sounds like, remember the DJ Khaled, you played yourself?
Right. What do you guys think? What did you think about that? It was a hell of a game.
Great game.
Let's see. We got a super chat from Anthony checking in. We'll answer this, and then we'll get started with the show.
Just a reminder, to get on today's mailbag, you can super chat like Elijah or Anthony, or use hashtag Seahawks in the comment section. Get your questions answered by Tyler. We have 2 mailbags coming up on today's show.
And I'll answer them, but if you want Chuck's answer, he'll chime in too, of course. Anthony writes, if we don't sign Geno, what other QB option do we have? Well, internally there is Drew Lock, although he's a free agent too. But then at that point, I know that you're looking at, guys that are on the quarterback market. Derek Carr just got released. Aaron Rodgers is on the trade block. Jimmy G is going to be a free agent. Baker Mayfield is going to be a free agent. Those are some of those guys. But I think at that point, you would prefer to look at the draft rather than going with the veteran. And it's the Bryce Young, C.J. Strouds, Will Levis, Anthony Richardsons of the world. Ultimately, I do think if they even have to, Chugs, they would franchise tag Geno Smith. I don't think Geno Smith is walking out of that building and putting on another uniform next year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I mean, Seattle's had a draft before where they maybe got a guy in the 3rd or 4th round and he ended up starting for him. So I don't know, maybe.
So Anthony, thanks for the question there. Thanks for the $2 super chat, and $100 in super chats get you a spot in the Seahawks Boot Hall of Fame. So if you need another incentive to super chat us besides just what's on the menu, we can induct you in the Boot Hall of Fame today, and $150 we will take down Das Boot. $150 collectively. So you can send in $150. That'll get you a spot on the boot, and we'll take down Das Boot at the same time too. So with the $7 that is in already, that means we are 143 away from Das Boot. I'm at 9 likes right now. Guys, we can do a hell of a lot better than that. You want to start the show, we got to get at least to 20. Is that fair?
Yeah.
20 more. I need 10 more likes out there at least. 10 or 11 more likes, and we'll start the show. So hit that like button, and we'll get started here in just a moment. News and rumors are next. We will have the latest from Todd McShay's newest mock draft of who he has the Seahawks selecting, and also a coaching staff update where things stand for Seattle. Also, Jalen Carter. Could the Seahawks potentially draft him? We'll go over the latest mock draft for your Seattle Seahawks, mock draft 2.0, with trades included in this one. And we also have not one, but 2 rumors mailbags as well. So we are just about ready to go. I need 2 more likes, and then we'll get this thing started. Let me get my timer out for recording-wise, and we'll just about be ready to go. All right, Jeremy, I believe we are all set. You good to go on your end? All right, we reached 20 likes. Good work, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started here on Seahawks Today. Glad to have you with us here on Seahawks Today. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. Coming up on today's show, we have the latest Seattle Seahawks news and rumors as we have a new mock draft from ESPN's Todd McShay. We'll tell you who he has the Seahawks selecting with their 2 first-round picks. Also, some coaching staff changes could be on the horizon for the Seahawks as a couple of their assistants are interviewing for some coordinator positions. We'll tell you about that and more coming up in just a few moments. Before we do, as we are talking draft on today's show, who is a player that you would like to see the Seahawks draft in 2023? And not even just talking first round. If there's a guy that you like later in the 2nd or 3rd rounds or a day 3 guy, let me know. Who comes to mind that you'd like to see in a Seahawks uniform next year? Name me a player or 2 that you'd like to see the Seahawks select in this upcoming draft. Todd McShay of ESPN has put together his latest mock draft for the entire first round for every team in the National Football League. The Seahawks, of course, with 2 selections, picking at 5 and 20. And we're going to react to and show you what McShay had to say for each one of those picks. So let's start out with the number 5 selection. McShay is projecting that the Seahawks take Texas Tech edge rusher Tyree Wilson at number 5 overall. And this is going to be a popular pick. I think you're going to see a lot of mock drafts that have the Seahawks going this route with Tyree Wilson there at number 5, as McShay does. And so let's hear more from McShay of the pick of Tyree Wilson to Seattle at 5. I expect Seattle to re-sign or franchise tag Geno Smith. So quarterback shouldn't be a top. It's draft day needs. But Poona Ford is a free agent. Uchenna Nwosu and Darrell Taylor are under contract for only 1 more season. So the defensive line could be a major focus. The Seahawks finished 7th in sacks, 45, but their pass rush win rate, 33.5, was 28th, and pressure rate, 28.9%, was 21st. Were lackluster. Wilson wins with power, totaling 14 sacks over the past 2 seasons in Lubbock. The resume on Tyree Wilson, it is pretty dang good, if we say so ourselves. The number 1 edge rusher, according to McShay, and the number 5 overall player in the entire draft class. Was a first-team All-American selection this past year. Also was first-team All-Big 12. So all of it adds up. The Seahawks have a need there. Tyree Wilson is a terrific football player, somebody that we mentioned had 7 sacks a year ago, 14 tackles for loss. The Seahawks need help at this spot. To me, this is one that I don't think you can complain about. If you end up with Tyree Wilson here, I think you're feeling pretty good about the Seahawks ending up at this spot. So let's Madden scale this thing. Scale it for me 1 through 100. How good is Tyree Wilson? What do you think he would bring to the Seattle Seahawks? This is our pinned comment today. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. Scale it for me 1 through 100. How good is Tyree Wilson? Let me know in the comment section how good you think he is. So the next pick for the Seahawks at number 20, McShay projects that the Seahawks select Alabama defensive back Brian Branch at 20 overall. Now, Branch is listed as a DB because he has experience playing both corner and safety. But it seems like the consensus is that he'll probably play safety at the next level. Here's more from McShay on the pick. I have the Seahawks sticking with defense after drafting Wilson at number 5. Now addressing the secondary. Yes, Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs are both under contract for a few more years, but Branch is versatile enough to play all over, often lining up in the box or over the slot as a nickelback. Plus, Adams hasn't played a full season since 2018 and is returning from a season-ending quadriceps injury suffered in the 2022 opener. With great instincts and a complete toolbox, Branch did it all last season. 89 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, and 9 run stops. McShay has him as the number 1 safety in this entire draft and the number 23 overall player. Now, what's interesting is, based on the way voting went in the SEC, he was second team in the SEC, but he was an All-American by most of the outlets out there. So he's got more respect nationally than what he got in his entire conference on that front. So I understand that you have 2 really good safeties in Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, but remember this possibility. Not only do you factor in the injury issues with Jamal Adams, but there's been rumblings that they could be moving him to linebacker, and then that could open up a spot for Brian Branch. Also, we talked about his ability to play corner. I think this gives you versatility. You have options that you can work with potentially with Brian Branch at the table here at 20. So, should the Seahawks draft Brian Branch with this selection at 20th overall? What do you think about this idea of bringing Branch to Seattle? Let me know in the comment section. Y for yes, N for no. If Seattle's still there at 20 and they can pick Brian Branch, should they do so? Let me know in the comment section. Y for yes, N for no, if they should pick Brian Branch. So, to recap the selections for the Seahawks, according to Todd McShay, you have Tyree Wilson going to Seattle with that number 5 pick and filling a need at the pass rusher spot. And remember this, I know we focus so much when it comes to pass rushers being available, but the Seahawks had such a need when it came to stopping the run this past year. I think what you're looking for, guys like Tyree Wilson or others that are trying to fill the void on this defensive line, is to not only be available to rush the quarterback, but also to be able to stop the run. And that was something that Al Woods, Poona Ford, these guys struggled with last year. And the outside linebacker spots, I mean, Bruce isn't getting any younger by any means. Uchenna Nwosu look pretty solid, but let's just see what they can bring to the table if you can add some depth potentially and make that work. Brian Branch, really good safety overall, mentioned 23 overall player, somebody that provides that flexibility for that Seahawks team. I think you're sitting here and you're saying to yourselves, okay, we will find a place for him one way or the other. That whether it's Jamal Adams moving to a linebacker position, or if he's not fully healthy, whatever it may be, or even playing Branch at cornerback, it's a good thing to have versatility, to make things work, to have athletes of some sorts. To me, I love the idea of having athletes, and to me, you can find a way, you can find a spot of some sorts to make it work where Brian Branch would be getting playing time for this Seahawks team. McShay's mock draft, not bad. It's, I would say it's pretty solid. I would give this a B+. Is it perfect? No, but it's not bad. I would give it about a B+ personally. Not an A, but not a C or D or even an F by that point. What say you guys? Grade the mock draft of Todd McShay, what he did here. Let me know in the comment section, A, B, C, or D, or F, what do you think McShay did with his 2 picks for Seattle. All right, little coaching staff update for you. Quarterbacks coach Dave Canales has interviewed for the Buccaneers offensive coordinator position. That is according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. And Canales has been a guy that's been there a long time on this coaching staff with Pete Carroll there in Seattle, but never got the opportunity to be a play caller, to be an OC. And so now he might have the chance to do so, being a finalist for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. That might not be the only change potentially. You could lose Canales. You could also lose Sean Desai as well. Let's tell you about these situations here. Canales, a finalist for the Bucs job. He was passed over for the Ravens OC gig. Ultimately, they gave that to Todd Monken, the Georgia offensive coordinator. He got that job. And then as far as Sean Desai goes, he got passed over for the Dolphins and the Browns jobs. He was a candidate for both those, was in those interviews, but ultimately they went different directions there. The Broncos job remains a possibility for Sean Desai. And I think everybody knew that Sean Desai, with as popular as he was well respected around the league, that he probably wasn't going to be in Seattle too long. So I know what you're thinking, that, man, you'd like to keep these guys, you would. But if your assistants are getting hired for other jobs, that means you are doing something right. That means that you have good coaches and that you're hiring good coaches. So, Seahawk fans, if Dave Canales or if Sean Desai leave, no hard feelings. And I would say that you sit there and you say, hey, we're doing something right as far as that goes. You'd like to keep them there, but at the end of the day, if they move on for better jobs, you understand, and you hope to replace them with just as good a quality guys there on that front. We'll continue to monitor that. As always, you interact with me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, at Tyler Jones Live, talking about your Seattle Seahawks on those social media platforms. And I'll see you next time right here on Seahawks Today. All right, Seahawk fans, what did you think about the mock draft from Todd McShay, of what he put together there? I gave it a B+. What say you guys? I see K Soon Soon says McShay C+ on these picks. P. Kerr says C. What else? I saw something else in here of somebody was not pleased about the Branch pick. A couple of people didn't like the idea of drafting Brian Branch. What say you guys? A, B, C, D, or F? What do you think of what McShay did? Jeremy Chuggs, what do you think about those picks for Seattle there?
I don't hate them at all. I don't hate them at all. I mean, you have a glaring need at pass rush, and I think you have a glaring need in the secondary of like getting some just secondary depth and help. You know, you have the front end guys. You have Quandre Diggs, Tyree Wilson. Hopefully, Kobe Bryant can take that second-year leap. I know he was hurt for a couple of games this past season. Hopefully, he can take that jump and be a good 1-2 corner duo with Tyree Wilson. I really like, drafting for need right there.
Right.
The only thing is, with that number 20 pick, Branch might be higher on the best players available board. You might be drafting Branch there just for he's higher on your big board. But I do not like that pick if Osiris Torrance is on the board.
Yeah.
If Osiris Torrance is on the board at 20, that would be a great pick for the Seahawks, solidifying the offensive line just a little bit more, getting a mauler at guard. I think that could help y'all tremendously. Or, I know it's early, but if you're able to trade back maybe a little bit to the front end of the second round and take the center out of Minnesota.
The guy with the very long name.
John Mitchell Schmitz or something.
It's a mouthful. I know that.
Jingleheimer Schmitz.
Yeah.
I really like what he could bring.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have a need. You certainly need as far as that center position.
Jonathan McGanna, you saying that. And perfect segue to that, Jonathan. If you have a question, this is your chance right now. We are about to go into our first Seahawks mailbag where Tyler Jones answers your questions.
If you guys had a question, super chat, you get to the front of the line. I believe we had a super chat that came in there a second ago. We'll get to that in the mailbag that we'll bring you. But Super Chat, that gets you to the front of the line. Also, use the hashtag Seahawks to get your questions in. I'm seeing some comments in the chat, but if you guys want to get on screen, use the hashtag Seahawks. And I'll say this too, Jeremy, just so people are clear too. I mean, the mailbag stuff, it could be just an opinion you want out there. Might not even necessarily be a question. If there's just something that you want to chime in and say, that's fine too.
Soon. If you want Bijan there at 20, you can just put hashtag Seahawks. I would take Bijan with the number 20 pick.
Right.
That's fine.
Right. It doesn't have to even necessarily be a question.
Yeah.
But if you want to get on screen and be interactive with the mailbag, use the hashtag Seahawks. Jonathan says, thanks for all the content, guys. Jonathan, thanks for watching. Appreciate your support and being with us here on the show today. As we'll get this mailbag going here in just a second. Get your questions in. Still have a mock draft coming up as well that we'll get to later, so don't miss out on that. Aaron, let's see. I see Aaron's comment, hashtag Seahawks, just like K Soon did right there to get on the mailbag. We'll get to that coming up. Jeremy, we all set on the mailbag?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Let me adjust my headset accordingly. All right. There we go. Anthony, we'll get to that here in the mailbag in just a second. Don't worry about that. We'll have you covered. Mailbag time here on Seahawks Today. Let's roll. It is time for another award-winning mailbag edition of Seahawks Today. Tyler Jones, your fearless leader, here with you. Appreciate you joining us. Coming up on today's show, we will answer your questions. This comes from our live shows that we do each and every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Subscribe to the channel now so you never miss on these mailbags. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a moment, and we'll go ahead and get started right away with a super chat from Elijah, as you can super chat to get on the mailbag or use the hashtag Seahawks as we go along here. Elijah with a $5 super chat. What do you think about picking a top cornerback with the number 5 pick to make the Seahawks a top 3 pass rushing defense? I really like Eli Ricks. So Jeremy Chuggs and I were talking about this earlier. Eli Ricks, probably not a first-round talent, but as far as that number 5 selection goes, think about this, okay? The top corners in this draft, you got Joey Porter Jr., Christian Gonzalez. Those guys are not projected, at least right now anyway, things could change, to be top 10 picks. If you want to use a pick on a corner, then in the first round, then that 20 pick would be for that. Top 5 as of now is a reach when it comes to the cornerback position. This draft is very deep at corner, but early on to go that route that early just doesn't really add up right now at this point in time. Corner is a need for Seattle for sure. Tariq Woolen was awesome this past year. I think Kobe Bryant is well on his way, but you need a little bit more, but that's not what you need to take care of at 5 as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for the question there, Elijah. Anthony with a $2 super chat. If we don't sign Geno, what other quarterback options do we have? Let's break this down across the entire board here, okay? Let's start out with players that are on the free agent / trade market of sorts. Derek Carr just got released. You also have Jimmy G, who's going to be a free agent. Baker Mayfield is going to be a free agent. Packers could be trading Aaron Rodgers potentially. So those are the guys that are kind of the veterans of the bunch that are available right now. And then you look at internally, you have Drew Lock is an option. And then when you look at the draft, there's 4 guys that separate themselves among the rest. Bryce Young, Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, and then Anthony Richardson. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to let Geno Smith walk out of that building without a Seahawks uniform. If they have to, I think they'll franchise tag him. I don't see any way, as of right now, Geno Smith is not your starting quarterback week 1 next year for your Seattle Seahawks. I think Geno's going to be back next year, and if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, then I think they would turn towards the draft before they'd go for a veteran. More QB talk. Got to take a quarterback. Geno is a stopgap. Levis or Stroud. You know, I really like what Geno did this past year, and I think Geno can play to that level again this upcoming season. And you're not necessarily wrong about him being a stopgap, but this is what I would say to that, is that you look at the needs this year for this Seahawks team, they are bigger than what the quarterback position is, okay? Look at next year's quarterbacks, And you got guys like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Quinn Ewers. There's better quarterbacks next year. And so I think you can hold off on that quarterback thing till next season potentially. If there's a guy you fall in love with, then I understand. But it's not something you have to do is spend an early round pick on a quarterback. So I disagree on that take, but I respect it. Taker 610. Thanks for the $2 super chat. Adam writes, any chance the Seahawks could sign Derek Carr, maybe as a backup? So Derek Carr is going to enter free agency, and the teams that have looked at him obviously had the visit with the New Orleans Saints. The Carolina Panthers have been talked about, the Washington Commanders, the New York Jets, and all of those teams are talking about Derek Carr being a starter. Geno Smith was a lot better than Derek Carr was this past season. And he costs probably a lot less than what Derek Carr is going to command somewhere. I think Derek Carr is going to be a starter somewhere in the National Football League next year. Just not with the Seattle Seahawks. So, and not to mention, I'm not a very big Derek Carr fan either. That's a whole other topic. Don't get me started on that. But to me, I just don't see that adding up for Seattle. I don't see him coming to Seattle. What say you? Should the Seahawks sign Derek Carr? This is our pinned comment today. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. S for sign, P for pass. What do you think about the idea of bringing Derek Carr to Seattle? Anthony writes with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Anthony, for that. Hashtag Seahawks. Where can we pick up Isaiah Foskey? That would be the kid from Notre Dame that's in the draft. And I've seen some different stuff on Foskey. It sounds like he's a day 2, day 3, somewhere in that range as far as that goes. And you look at what the Seahawks need, Foskey could be a potential fit for the Seahawks team. He's somebody to watch for sure as far as that goes. So he would certainly be on their radar. Not a day 1 guy, but somewhere in that day 2, day 3 range. Elijah with another $5 super chat. With our last pick in the second, if Anthony Richardson is still there, do we pick him up? I think that's what you meant to write, Elijah. No. I am out on Anthony Richardson. I think he is by far the worst quarterback in this upcoming draft. He is a project, and he didn't impress me at all at Florida this past year. I am not interested in bringing in Anthony Richardson whatsoever. To me, it's going to be a long time before he's ready, if he's ever ready to play at this level in the National Football League. Not a very good passer. He's just not that accurate at this point. To me, there's a lot of flaws in his game. And, you know, with the way that there's such a demand for quarterbacks, he might not even be there at 20. So the Seahawks have other issues that they need to take care of. Anthony Richardson is not a guy I'm a fan of either. So I'll pass on Anthony Richardson. Elijah. Tyson. Best run-stopping grades in this draft. That's a very good question here. Let's go over these for you. Talking about defensive tackle at the run-stopper spots. Obviously, you start with Jalen Carter, right? I mean, that's where this draft arguably begins with, is Jalen Carter. And if he somehow is available to you at 5, maybe even consider trading up for him potentially. Jalen Carter is far and away that dude. He is that guy. Then there's Brian Breesy, and he is all over the place. We've seen him as high as top 5 on some projections, and then there's others that have him going the end of the first round. Kind of all over the place potentially with him. Ika from Baylor is another one that fascinates me. He was a mauler in the Big 12 Conference and really created some problems for teams to deal with. And then after that, that's when you start to see things drop off. I like Cansey from Pittsburgh. He's a guy that could, when it comes to the combine and all that, might sneak his way into the first round potentially. He might have a late run at it. Dexter's another guy, too, from Florida. But it's Jalen Carter, and then it's kind of everybody else at that point. Updates on Geno Smith's contract situation. As of this recording, we are still playing the waiting game. But I'll say this much. When you hear the tone of things, And I think it's very important to kind of read into the tone, what people are saying, right? Seems like there's a positive feeling about things right now. And you don't get that in Baltimore, for example, with Lamar Jackson. It seems kind of hostile. The way things went in Las Vegas with Derek Carr, that was not friendly in that situation. So based on what we've heard, just even though they don't have a deal done at this point, it does seem like that both sides are going to figure this out. It's a marriage that they want to happen, that they want to get a deal done. So to me, that's my biggest takeaway, is that everything sounds good. I don't think it's a deal beyond 2 or 3 years, but we'll see. How many years should the Seahawks sign Geno Smith for? It's going to happen, but how long should it happen? Let us know in the comment section. Let me know how many years should the Seahawks sign Geno Smith for on this new deal when it comes this way. Jarhead wants to know, how far would you trade back from 5 if we really hate how the board falls? I think the most important key is getting a first-round pick next year. I think that would be the thing. Here's what you do. Think about this, okay? So you trade back, okay, and you still have that pick. Let's say 5 becomes the 9th pick or the 10th pick. But then you pick up a first-round pick next year, then all of a sudden you're feeling pretty good. To me, that's the key, is if you're going to trade back at that 5 pick, you have to get a pick next year as well and keep on building this thing and drag out that draft capital, and then you head into next year with 2 first-round picks. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Next year's quarterbacks are a lot better. Eventually, you do have to take care of the quarterback situation long term. Doesn't have to be this year, but you could prolong that to next year when there's better quarterback options. So, for me, that's what I'm looking at. At 5, if you're going to trade down, it's got to be in position to get something next year. That's the key, personally. I'd like to stay in the top 10. If you can stay in the top 10 and get a pick next year, I think you're cooking with bacon grease. What do we do at slot corner? Well, first off, let's break this down here. Let's start off with Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was your nickelback this year. I think he moves into the CB2 role where Mike Jackson is. Mike Jackson's going to be a free agent. If Mike Jackson wants to come back, I think you're signing up Mike Jackson to play the nickelback spot. Shout out to one of the worst bands of all time. I think that's what you're asking Mike Jackson to do if he comes back, is to play nickelback. But what another thing you look at is, we've talked about the need for corner in this draft, right? If you could find somebody in this draft that's ready to play that nickelback spot, like you found Kobe Bryant last year, then that's a really good position. Also, there's Trey Brown is also a possibility as well. Although we didn't see much from Trey Brown last year, the last time that we saw him consistently on the football field, he was solid as well. So you have a few different layers to figure out, but I trust management that they're going to put themselves in a good spot and everything will be okay. What's the Seahawks' biggest need this offseason? What is it? I think it's finding some help in that front 7, pass rushers and run stoppers. What say you? Tell me in the comment section below. Hashtag Seahawks. Can't you see how you can't take Bijan at 20 if he is there? I think he means can take Bijan. You can't pass up on Bijan. I think that's what he's trying to say. Look, I like Bijan Robinson a lot. He's the best running back prospect I think I've seen since Saquon Barkley. But you already have Kenneth Walker, who is fantastic. And Bijan Robinson, usually you don't like to take running backs in the first round, but he's kind of the exception there. I'm okay with other teams looking at Bijan for the first round, but Seattle, I just don't see that working. I think that you pass on that opportunity bringing Bijan, you focus on other positions. Maybe that'll come back to bite me years down the road when they check the tape on this, but where the Seahawks are at and where their needs are, to me, that just doesn't add up to go Bijan there at 20. Last question from Matthew, sexy with a bit of gangsta, says, NFL fans must demand a better officiating from the NFL. Too many postseason bad calls or no calls, etc. It's really blank officiating. This is a billion-dollar industry. We need better NFL refs. Matthew, I agree. NFL officiating, I know Roger Goodell a couple days ago said that he feels like officiating's never been better, but, I mean, that's just total BS from Goodell. I thought officiating in the Super Bowl was fine. I think they got the right call in the holding penalty there at the end of the game. To me, they got that right. But Carl Cheffers and others have been a disappointment. I mean, think about this. All the best refs are now doing TV. Gene Steratore, Terry McCauley, Dean Blandino. Mike Pereira, I know, was working in management. It's been a long time since he's actually been out in the football field. But with that said, I think that, yes, you need better officials, and here's what you do to solve this. I'm going to make this real quick. The way that you solve officiating is you need refs to be full-time employees. You got guys like Clay Martin, okay, and I think Clay's one of the better officials in this league. Clay, you know what his day job is? He's a principal and a high school basketball coach. How should any official have that amount of time to be able to be a high school basketball coach and a principal? Not a knock on Clay, don't get me wrong, but that just shouldn't be the case. He should be a full-time employee of the league. That should be his job. That's the issue at hand. Make the officials full-time where that is their job fully and nothing else. Follow me on Twitter at Tyler Jones Live. I have more complaints about officiating, and it's not about that Super Bowl. That was fine, that penalty, as far as I'm concerned. I'll see you next time. Appreciate you joining us. Have a great weekend.
Bad call in the Super Bowl. Bad call.
What do you think about that, though? We need full-time refs, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not like the NFL can't afford to have their refs be full-time employees either. They're
bad call in the Super Bowl, though. It's apparently, Tyler told me this, it's Single Awareness Day. What's your best dating advice?
So yesterday
for Papa Jones.
Yesterday was Valentine's Day. Today is Singles Awareness Day. Do I have a burner now, apparently, in the chat?
Papa Jones burner.
Apparently I do. Okay. Hi, Papa Jones burner. This is news to me. Did not know I had a burner. Anyways, best dating advice. This is what I would say. My best dating advice, and then Jeremy can answer this too. I would say, Jeremy, it's to be yourself and to care as much as possible for your significant other and to show you care. Go out of your way to do things without being asked to do said things. To me, when you take that extra step, when you show that you care, I mean, like, think about it this way. When you want, your partner should not be your roommate. They should be your partner, and you should be looking out for them. So that, to me, is my best dating advice, is taking that extra step, going the extra mile, and going that route. What say you, Jeremy? What do you think of that answer first?
I thought that was decent. Decent answer, My biggest thing from somebody who's engaged,
yes,
I would say biggest trait that you need in dating is the ability to read the room.
Yeah.
You got to know, obviously don't know if what your partner's thinking at all times. You're not a mind reader, but if you're able to read the room and kind of see where they're at a lot, that kind of helps you.
Let's see. What's the chat saying on best dating advice? Matthew says, don't let one zit keep you from going out. They have stuff for that. Let's see. Jaden says, understand that people are different and be understanding of their needs. Space says, thanks for the relationship advice. Space, we're just glad we can help. Let's show the Super Chat menu real quick, and then we'll get to our mock draft here. We are at a total of $16 in the Super Chat menu right now. That means we are about 134 away from Dodge Boot. $100 gets you a spot in the Boot Hall of Fame. And there's the menu items there. Also, any Super Chat gets you to the front of the line in our second mailbag that we have coming up later on in the show. Passmaster says, look at her from the feet up, then tell her she looks amazing. Hashtag real one. Okay.
There you go.
Papa Jones' burner says, be like Papa Jones. Okay, well, if you say so.
All right, let's get into this mock draft. Tyler does his second mock draft of the offseason.
Give me 1 second here. Pull up my screen. All right, I am ready to go. Mock draft numero dos, with trades involved this time here, folks. We're going to get very juicy on this one, so stay tuned for that. That's coming up next here on Seahawks Today. It is mock draft numero dos here on Seahawks Today, and what's going to be different this time is that we have trades involved here in this mock draft, and I have used the Draft Network Draft Simulator, so they've made the picks for the other 31 teams, and so it's my job to step in for John Schneider and Pete Carroll today to make the rest of the draft picks for the Seattle Seahawks. So before we reveal these picks and also these trades and all of that, here's your chance to get this thing started. Who should the Seahawks draft at 5 and 20? If you were John Schneider and you could make these picks, who do you like for Seattle to select those 5 and 20 overall picks? Let us know in the comments section below who you'd like to see the Seahawks pick. So let's look at the first 4 selections off the board in the simulator. The Bears at number 1 go Will Anderson from Alabama. Number 2, the Texans, with a bit of surprise, they go Myles Murphy out of Clemson at number 2. Tyree Wilson goes all the way to 3 to the Arizona Cardinals out of Texas Tech. And then the Colts, they pass on the quarterback position with going with an offensive tackle out of Ohio State, Paris Johnson Jr. Every quarterback still on the board at this point. Not a quarterback selected in the Seahawks pick at 5, so you can have any quarterback you want at this point in time based on the way the simulator worked out, whether it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, or Will Levis. But here's something to think about, too. Jalen Carter's still there. Jalen Carter, who's arguably the best player of this draft, that fits the number 1 position of need for the Seahawks, is somehow still around at 5? You know what I'm about to do. Of course I'm taking Jalen Carter here. I understand. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, very good players. But this is a situation. I have said this from the beginning. If Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are there, I don't care what your quarterback situation is. You take those guys first, and then you figure out the rest after that. Jalen Carter is too good to pass up. If you're picking Carter at 5, I mean, you are feeling pretty good. You're popping champagne bottles and everything and having a great time. So, Seahawks take Jalen Carter, number 1 overall player and number 1 defensive tackle on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board. A unanimous first-team All-American this past season, and not to mention a 2-time national champion with the Georgia Bulldogs, a home run pick, and I might get a big pay raise if I'm making this pick for the Seattle Seahawks at 5. Here's what Mel Kiper has to say about Jalen Carter. He finished the season playing the best ball of his career. He had 12 quarterback pressures in his last 3 games for the back-to-back national champs, showing that he can wreck games from the interior. Carter was fantastic after he returned in late October from missing 2 games because of a knee injury. Check out this show of force in the SEC title game against LSU. Georgia had 5 defenders picked in round 1 last April, and Carter arguably was the most disruptive than all of them in 2021. He's explosive at the snap and finishes well around the ball, even though he has just 6 career sacks. The numbers from Carter this past season include 32 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, but those don't tell the whole story, as he took on a lot of double teams at times, and he opened up things for other guys that do well and stack up their numbers. You get Jalen Carter here, I mean, you're feeling pretty good. So, tell me this in the comment section. If he's there at 5, how could you pass on him? Should the Seahawks draft Jalen Carter if they get that opportunity to do so? Let me know in the comment section. Type Y for yes, type N for no if you think the Seahawks should draft Jalen Carter. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. Y for yes, N for no if the Seahawks should draft Jalen Carter or not. So our 20th selection, we have a trade offer from the Chicago Bears. And it involves the Seahawks moving back from 20 to 53. But we pick up a first-round pick next year. Now you have my attention because I think the Bears are going to be really bad next year. And so this should be a pretty high pick, considerably speaking. So with that, I'm going to take the trade offer. I'm not going to pick at 20 with that other first-round selection. So then we're going to skip forward to the 37th pick after I've taken the Bears' first-round pick and I've moved back to 53. We'll get to the 53rd pick here in just a second. Let's go to 37. That's where I have the Seahawks landing Alabama linebacker Henry To'o from the University of Alabama at 37 overall, filling another need at the linebacker position for your Seattle Seahawks. We are beefing up this defense, baby. The number 8 inside linebacker on Mel Kiper's big board, and with the injury concerns about Jordan Brooks, not knowing when he's going to come back, and then also having in free agency Cody Barton, I think you find a starting linebacker right here with this selection in the second round. A first-team All-SEC selection, started his career with Tennessee, and then he transferred to Alabama in 2021, and he flourished with the Crimson Tide the last couple of seasons. The statistics for Henry the past season include 94 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. To me, this is a guy that's a first-round talent, and if you get him at this spot in the second round, I think you're feeling pretty good as far as that goes. We got a couple more second-round picks to get to, but first, I made that trade. I traded out of 20. I got an offer I couldn't refuse. Sorry. If you hate it, well, that's on you. I mean, how could you not take that trade offer? Do you agree with taking that trade offer? Would you trade the number 20 pick if you get an offer like that? Let me know. Type T for trade, type P for pass. I am all open to discussion about trading draft picks. And this was one I could not pass up. Let me know in the comment section. T for trade, P for pass. What do you think about 20 overall? Now we skip ahead to 52, and we're going to go edge rusher. We're going to continue to build up on that defense, and that's where we find Army edge rusher Andre Carter II. And Andre Carter II, this is a guy that we've seen floated around as a top 20 pick potentially. He's still here at 52. We're feeling great. And I know the first question you're going to ask, well, he's from Army. Is he even eligible to play in the NFL? Is he going to have to, go join the military and be on base somewhere right away? He's got that all worked out. He is good to play football right now and live out his NFL dream and then figure out his military service later. He's deferring that. He is going all in the National Football League, so you don't have to worry about that. He is there. You look back at his junior season. Although this past year his numbers were down, he had 3.5 sacks. But remember, he was a bigger name, took on more double teams and stuff like that. His junior year was spectacular. 15.5 sacks, first-team all-independent selection, according to Phil Still. Even this past year, when he had the down year, which included 41 tackles, still had 7.5 tackles for loss this past year. And then you talk about size. Size matters, folks. 6'7", 260. This is a big dude, okay? And with being in the Army, he's going to be a disciplined football player too. So I really like this idea of taking Andre Carter II here with this pick. So then we have another pick for your Seattle Seahawks of who they go with at 53 overall. And this time we are going at wide receiver, our first offensive pick. That's where we find Zay Flowers from Boston College, who many people expect to be a first-round pick, but he slides to us in the second round. And I know what you're thinking, that Zay Flowers, maybe the Seahawks don't necessarily need a wide receiver that early, but this is something that I can't pass up on. And Tyler Lockett is 31 years old, and you have a need at the number 3 receiver spot. Flowers would jump in right away. Number 4 receiver on Kiper's big board, number 19 player over the all, and we got him at 53. That's great. 2-time All-ACC selection, and he set the school record for single season receiving touchdowns with 12 this past year. I like all of that about Zay Flowers. Nothing negative to say about Zay Flowers there. Mel Kiper even chimed in on Zay Flowers. Had this to say, Flowers, who had 200 catches and 31 touchdowns in his college career, is one of my favorite prospects in this entire class. He's so elusive, so quick in and out of his breaks. He plays out of the slot or lined up outside. Remember, Seahawks need help at slot. He can take a jet sweep to the house. That sounds nice. He just gets open and makes plays. He forced 25 missed tackles this season, the third most in the country for wideouts. Flower size won't wow teams, but just put on the tape and they'll see why I think he's a first-round talent. You look at what he did last year. We mentioned the 12 touchdowns he had, 78 catches, over 1,000 yards. To me, that's a win-win. You're getting a top 20 caliber receiver, top 20 player in this draft in the second round. That's a home run, and you've already taken care of defense with some big picks earlier before that. Got a great deal that we're offering all of our Seahawk fans here on Seahawks Day. Look, it is still a little cold outside. You need a hoodie, whether you're just inside and don't want to turn on the heater, or if you're going outside and hanging out with the boys, whatever it may be. We got you covered. And get this, the hoodies are on sale up to 50% off. 50% off just for a limited time while supplies last. Get yours today, whether you want to wear blue or gray or white. We have the Seahawks gear for everybody in all different colors, all different shapes and sizes. We got you covered. Get yours now. Chatsports.com/Seahawks hoodie for more. That's chatsports.com/Seahawks hoodie. 83rd pick, we go back to defense, and that's where we find Brandon Joseph. Seahawks have question marks when it comes to the safety position, with Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams getting older, and also with Jamal Adams having question marks about his health, and they might move him to linebacker anyway. So we find Brandon Joseph here, who not too long ago was a first-team All-American back in 2020, and he's been successful at two different schools, Northwestern and Notre Dame. You go back to 2020, that was the COVID season, and the nerds at Pro Football Focus rated Joseph that year as the number one strong safety in the entire country. That's how good he played back then. And so you bring Brandon Joseph in, and I think you're pretty excited because now you have some potential flexibility to figure out what you're going to do with Jamal Adams. And if Jamal Adams isn't quite healthy, then I think that you have a solution of some sorts here with Brandon Joseph, and it's a guy that you found yourself that you didn't have to use a first-round pick on for a position that's of need but not of highest priority. We move to pick 123. We get our help on the offensive line. Seahawks are desperate when it comes to the interior of the offensive line with the center positions and the guard spots. You already have your bookend tackles for the foreseeable future with Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. And this is where we find, say it real slow with me here, folks, Osologun Oluwatimi from the University of Michigan. Consensus All-American in 2022. Won some big-time awards, including the Outland Trophy and the Remington Award. And kind of like what we talked about with Joseph earlier, is that he's been successful in two places. Spent 3 seasons at Virginia. Now he's there at Michigan and had a very solid season with the Michigan Wolverines. Of course, they made it to the college football playoff and won the Big Ten championship. And you look at what he was a part of with that Michigan team. They ran the football so well. They were a physical football team. You have 2 tackles that specialize when it comes to pass blocking. You get OO here. We're just going to call him OO for short. And he's a very good run blocker. Then you're kind of taking care of 2 different things. You got your pass blocking specialist. Now you take care of the run game from the inside. I like this selection for Seattle. Still a few more picks to get to. But what is the biggest need for the Seahawks in this year's draft? There's a lot of different directions we can point to. We can talk about the interior of the offensive line. We can look at the front 7. What is the biggest need? What do they need to cover in this draft? Let us know in the comments section what you think the Seahawks need to take care of in this draft. Biggest need. Let's go back to the defensive line now with 153. That's where we're taking Zach Pickens, Zach Double C Pickens with this selection. And I'll be honest, this is more of a project with Zach Pickens with this pick. But That's what you're looking at when you're talking about day 3 guys. Draft Network described him as this: big on big block destruction. I like hearing that word, destruction. And even at a 5th-round selection, he's still expected to be an immediate rotational contributor. That's what we're looking at here. Even though he's a project of some sorts, expect him to get playing time right away, to kind of learn on the fly of sorts, to figure it out. Did play in the Senior Bowl this past year. The numbers for him in 2022 included 42 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 3 pass breakups. Still 2 more picks to go. That's where we go to Illinois, and we find a running back. Look, we don't know if the Seahawks are going to bring back Rashad Penny. Probably not. You can't really trust any of the other backs to be your number 2 guy. You're not going to pick Bijan all the way in the 1st round. Running back's a need, but it's not priority by any stretch, but you do need to take care of it. This is where we take a flyer on Chase Brown out of Illinois. 2nd team All Big Ten selection this past year. Won the John Cornish Trophy. And you talk about consistency. This is somebody that has had back-to-back years with over 1,000 rushing yards. So he's been a nice piece. And Brett Bielema, we know he loves to run the football. Traditionally speaking, we saw it at Arkansas. We saw it with Wisconsin. And he was a consistent force for the Fighting Illini this past year. He had over 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns and was kind of forgotten about. Nobody was hardly talking about Chase Brown and what he was able to do. He's sitting there late day 3. Sure, why not add Chase Brown and make him another piece to sit behind Kenneth Walker? You have to have multiple backs in this league. You have to give a break to your starting running back. Chase Brown could be a good fit there. Our final pick. I am of the belief, the Bill Belichick philosophy, that every draft you should take a quarterback. Whether it's in the 6th or 7th round or whether it's in the 1st and 2nd round, whatever it may be. You can't end the draft without taking a quarterback, at least to take on a project. Maybe it's to add value later. Clayton Tune is very interesting. Now, as somebody that went to the University of Kansas, I am very upset that he originally committed to Kansas and then decommitted and went to Houston. But nonetheless, he had a very good run with the Houston Cougars there, as he was 1st team All-American Athletic Conference this past year. And everybody knows about the first 4 quarterbacks in this draft, right? Will Levis, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. According to Kuiper, the guy after them, after all 4 of those guys that are supposed to be in the 1st round, is Clayton Tune. And we got him in the 6th. This is a project I'm willing to see if it works. And Clayton Tune's a guy I think you would feel comfortable with being your backup. You wouldn't even need Drew Lock at that point. Last season, 40 touchdown passes. That was the 3rd most of any quarterback in all of college football this past year. That's pretty dang good if you ask me. 10 interceptions, over 4,000 yards, and he's pretty accurate too. Over 67% completion percentage for Clayton Tune there. I like that selection possibly late there in the 6th round. So here's what we have done with this draft. At number 5, we took Jalen Carter, and we threw a party. We popped champagne bottles. We were feeling really good about that. Then we got Henry To'o, the linebacker from Alabama. Andre Carter, who I know there's questions about the military service, but sounds like he's got that figured out. We got that taken care of. Zay Flowers, a 1st-round talent. We got him at 53. We took care of the safety spot with Brandon Joseph at 83. And then the back half of the draft felt pretty solid as well. And not to mention, we also got a 1st-round pick next year from a team that's probably going to be pretty bad. And we might use that next year to find the quarterback we really want potentially. So, how did I do? Before we go, grade my Seahawks mock draft, A, B, C, D, or F. What do you think about the selections I made for your Seattle Seahawks? Not only did we get 9 picks, we also picked up a pick next year as well. Let me know in the comment section. I'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today. All right, Jeremy. What do you think? What do you think about my mock there?
I think the floor grading scale for this it's got to be a B minus.
Okay.
When you get the best player in the draft, and you get and you get a first rounder next year, an additional.
What we
first rounder.
think is going to be a bad pick too, or a good pick.
I'd start with a B minus in that, even though, Dirty D, I agree. You for unrealistic. I don't think Jalen Carter's falling to 5. But
that's the way the simulator worked out. We don't control it.
But I mean, you never know. How many times have we said, "Oh, this guy's definitely going number 1 or going whatever"? How many people before Baker Mayfield was taken first overall? I don't think anybody thought until the day of or the day before.
The day of, yeah.
That Baker Mayfield was going first overall.
Right.
I don't know. So.
What say you guys? Grade my mock draft A, B, C, D, or F.
With all that being said, as I take a look back at your mock.
Let's go through, show the people one more time.
I don't hate it. I wish you could have gotten an interior offensive lineman at 83 instead of Brandon Joseph. I don't know who's on the board there.
Right. That was the one thing that I would take away from this draft was we went so defense heavy that I probably could have done better when it came to interior line.
Yeah. I think that's the only gripe I have right there, but then you kind of get him at 123. Oluwatimi could be a decent center for y'all. I know he was a great part of the Michigan O-line, one of the best offensive lines in college football. I'd give it probably a B+.
Okay.
B+. I'm not crazy over the Brandon Joseph pick, but then also, like I said, I don't know who was on the board at that pick.
Right. Let's see. Aaron says A- or B+. Matthew says A- just because.
Wait, hold on. We have an official on how to say the Michigan. I'm going to call them the Michigan Sinners. First and last name. Go ahead, Jack.
So at Michigan, he went by Olu. So not to say the whole first name. It's just Olu. Oluwatimi.
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 Oluwatimi. Got it. All right. There you go. Thank you, Producer Jack, for that right there.
Oluwatimi.
The starting center from Michigan.
Timmy.
Thank you, Jack, for that one there.
Oluwatimi.
All right.
And it's time for the second mailbag of today's show. If you want to rip Tyler on his mock draft, have your own thoughts on the draft, use hashtag Seahawks in your comments. I've been seeing, who have I been seeing a lot in the comments? Jose True or Jose True? I don't know. You've been commenting a lot on the mock draft, kind of what you would do. Let me know. Use hashtag Seahawks. Let us know your thoughts on the upcoming draft. And just a reminder, Super Chats get you to the front of the line. There are currently no Super Chats in the queue. So Super Chats would get you to the front of the line, get your question answered first. We do have a good amount of hashtag Seahawks questions going, but keep them going in the comments. I'm going to pick the best questions for Tyler to answer. If you do send a Super Chat, this is our menu right here.
This is what we're offering. We haven't sang the DK song. Well, we did once.
Yeah.
But that's not enough. We need to sing the DK song more. $5, we'll sing the DK song. $10 to take a shot. $150, we will take down Desai.
I actually think we owe one.
Do we? Okay. Chomping, carols, chomping, Geno passes, no one stopping. DK, touchdowns all day, he rules. That's the Super Chat menu. We are at $16 in Super Chats right now. That means that we are about, 137 away from Das Boot. $100 gets you a spot in the Boot Hall of Fame. And we got a new boot. We are just getting started. I only have 3 inductees so far. $100 gets you a spot. You were on this forever. They can never take it away from you. I would love to induct somebody in the Boot Hall of Fame before the end of the day today. So that is what we're offering. Let me adjust my headset accordingly, and we'll get into our final segment as we'll do one more mailbag here. Jeremy, we all about ready here?
I think we're ready to go.
Okay, hashtag Seahawks.
And see, 1023 FFG. Great question right there. Great comment. Use hashtag Seahawks. Get it up on the channel.
And just like what we talked about earlier, You can make a comment. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a question for me. It could be a comment, too, like what we saw there, the Jordan Addison thing. Whatever it may be, if you want to get on the show, get on the screen, use hashtag Seahawks or Super Chat to get on the mailbag. We about ready to go here? All right, let's get started. Mailbag time here on Seahawks Today. Time for another mailbag here on Seahawks Today. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. We will answer your questions using the hashtag Seahawks or Super Chatting. It comes from our live shows that we do each and every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Now, here's what I want you to do. Not only to subscribe, but turn on your notifications. Because if news breaks, we are going to try to get the video out or we'll go live, whatever we need to do, as quickly as possible. And you need to know when that happens so you're the first to see it. Go to your settings app, scroll down, tap YouTube, tap notifications, then turn on allow notifications. That way you never miss a moment of Seahawks Today. The latest happenings with your favorite team, we got them covered right here on the channel. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, never miss a moment. Aaron writes in, hashtag Seahawks, what is a position that is better addressed with free agency rather than the draft? There are good linebackers such as Azeez Al-Shari and Levante David in free agency. That's a very good question. And here's one thing I think about, okay? Let's point to this. The edge rusher position. Is Will Anderson going to be around at 5? Probably not. After that, I mean, you got guys like Andre Carter potentially, but the talent that you would be picking, assuming Will Anderson's gone, at the 5 spot is probably not going to be better than what you'll find in free agency. Same for the defensive tackle spot. Think about this. Once Jalen Carter's gone, which I doubt he's available at 5, you got guys, like Deron Payne sitting out there. I mean, the edge spot, Marcus Davenport sitting out there. It won't be cheap, but there are better options potentially there in free agency. I still prefer to build through the draft. That's the way I think you build a franchise for the long term. But there are some Band-Aids of sorts you could point to potentially there. Let's see. Question here. What are the chances on getting Payne or Davenport? Glad you asked. Speaking of which, Deron Payne and Marcus Davenport are not going to be cheap. And one thing that we told you guys about a while back when it came to Deron Payne was that you might find yourself in a situation where if you go with Deron Payne, you might not be able to afford Geno Smith. You might be choosing Deron Payne over Geno Smith. Marcus Davenport, I mean, it's all a possibility. But we know, historically speaking, the Seahawks don't like to spend money in free agency, that they prefer to find guys in the draft. So I would say this, that the chances of getting either guy, it's possible, but it's not very high, if that makes sense. But thanks for the question there. The Pass Master and OG here at Chat Sports, just stopping by, brother. I'm excited for Walker year 2. He's not doing anything but getting better. Anyway, just wanted to say thank you. Keep up the great work. Hashtag real one. Pass Master, you are a real one, my friend. Kenneth Walker is going to be a badass in 2023. He was spectacular this past season. Even with the question marks on the offensive line, we saw him still contend and be one of the best rookies, one of the best running backs in the entire National Football League. I can't wait to see what he has for an encore. I'll say this much. Not only do the Seahawks need to get that interior O-line help, I would like to see Seattle try to find the necessary pieces when it comes to another running back behind him or two to take the load off Kenneth Walker. I think we saw times after Rashad Penny went down where he went overworked of some sorts. But yes, he should have a big year, Pass Master. Jerry writes, what do you think about drafting C.J. Stroud? Well, Jerry, I'm glad you asked. C.J. Stroud, I think C.J. Stroud is going to be a very good football player in the National Football League. He's got all the things that you're looking for in a quarterback. I'll say this, though. You look at where Seattle is at, I think you could sit here and say to yourselves, okay, he might be there, but do I really want to miss on Tyree Wilson if, Jalen Carter or Will Anderson somehow slip? You can't say no to that either. To me, there's just too many things potentially. The Seahawks would have to take care of something else. And then you look at next year. As good as I think C.J. Stroud is, same with Bryce Young, I think Caleb Williams and Drake May next year are even better than those guys. So with that said, I'm open to the possibility. C.J. Stroud, I think, could be a lot of fun for the Seahawks, could sit behind Geno Smith, but I don't think the chances of that happening are very high right now. Pin comment today. Mike and Nad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. Should Seattle draft C.J. Stroud? If you think they should, type Y for yes. If not, type in for no. Let me know in the comment section below. Jonathan writes, if we miss in Schmitz, should we draft Luke Weipler at 53 or Joe Tippmann at 83? Weipler, we'll see. Those are certainly possibilities for this Seahawks team of what they could potentially do with those selections there at 57 and 83. To me, I think it all also depends. You mentioned with Schmitz there, like what I don't know about the scenario is then what do you do at 5 and 20? That kind of sets the tone for the rest of the draft. So I'm open to that possibility, but I don't, without knowing what they did at 5 and 20, that's hard to necessarily say with that answer, Jonathan. P. Kerr says take Hooker in the 4th, sign Geno 26.5 times 2. Let's start off with the first half of that with Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker's got a torn ACL. Hendon Hooker before the injury was probably a late first, second round pick, and he's probably going to miss most of next season. I'm not taking a 4th round pick on a guy that can't play for me. I like Hendon Hooker, but 4th round's too high. Geno 26.5 for 2 years. To me, that is one that I think is pretty low, the price tag. I think Geno is going to command more than 26.5. I think you're looking at least 30, if not more, when it comes to Geno Smith on that front. But thanks for the question, Pete Kerr. So, folks, it is the month of February. It is still cold outside at times, and we know about the winds. You got to be just a little bit warm out there. Why not be repping your favorite team with a very nice Seahawks hoodie? And I'm going to offer a deal just for Seahawks Today viewers. If you go to chatsports.com/Seahawks hoodie, you can get one of these hoodies that you're seeing on your screen for up to 50% off. Half-price sale. Quite the deal if you ask me. You can get yours now, chatsports.com/Seahawks hoodie today. You'll be glad you did. They look snazzy. You're representing your favorite team at the same time. You're feeling warm. Why would you not get one of these? Get yours now, chatsports.com/Seahawks hoodie. Buck writes, which wide receiver is your favorite for the Seahawks to land? I really like Tank Dell. I like Tank Dell a lot, too, the wide receiver out of Houston. He and Clayton Tune had a nice duo. They were a good pairing there. Tank Dell, I believe the number was 17 touchdowns that he had this past year there for the University of Houston. Tank Dell's terrific, and I think he's got a bright future in the National Football League. He would be a nice find. One player that we talked about in our mock draft that has a chance of slipping is Zay Flowers. I'd look for him too. Chris writes, if you had to do it over again, would you have given DK Metcalf the extension he got last year? He wasn't as productive as he should have been. I understand where you're coming at, Chris. I get what you mean with the frustrations. DK still had a good year, but maybe not necessarily what he was paid. But think about this. Here's what I'll point to, Chris. The money that he got paid was not about last year. It's about the next several seasons and pushing forward, okay? You paid DK that money, not about one season, but because you believe in him that he's going to be a very good receiver for a long time. So, no, I don't have an issue with what they paid him and keeping him around. And if you don't like what he brings to the table, then maybe you trade him down the line if he has a down year this upcoming year. But to me, this was an investment in the future, and it will be a very good investment that will pay off. Buy or sell that DK Metcalf is a top 10 receiver in the National Football League. He's paid like it. Is he one? If you think DK is one of the best 10 receivers in the National Football League, type B for buy. If not, type S for sell. What do you think? Is DK a top 10 receiver? B for buy, S for sell. Let me know. Tyson writes, how do you rate our 3 tight ends? Fant, Disley, and Parkinson. All 3 tight ends were very similar to each other when it came statistically. I think the order of the tight ends is exactly what you gave right there, Tyson. It's Noah Fant, it's Will Disley, and then it's Colby Parkinson. But I don't think they're very far off from each other. I think they're pretty close. What I would like to see this upcoming season is these tight ends all used a little more. We saw early on in the season they'd really like to use 12 personnel, and they got those tight ends out in space, and there was a nice comfortability with Geno Smith with those guys. But I thought it wasn't the same at the end of the year as it was at the beginning of the season with the tight end spot. So, I think all 3 guys need to be used more. What are your thoughts on Kelee Ringo? Says M. Grubb. I got to tell you this. Kelee Ringo, I think, is a very good football player. Had a good run there with the Georgia Bulldogs, winning a national championship and everything. And what's so fascinating is that you look at draft stock-wise, he is all over the place. I've seen him as low as the 3rd round, seen him in the top 20 of the draft. There's nothing really consistent. I think, you look at the depth, there's a lot of good corners in this draft. And Kelee Ringo, although he probably has a first-round grade, according to some folks, some of the experts out there, he might be one that ends up slipping. And if he's still around in the 2nd round, and you're the Seahawks with 2 second-round picks, that'd be hard to pass on. I don't think Seattle takes him at 20 because they have other things to take care of. But 2nd round, if he's still hanging around, hell yeah. Nonstop Seahawks coverage each and every day here on the channel. We're counting down to the draft, free agency, trades, and more. We got more mock drafts that are coming. Just did another one earlier this week. Stay tuned. Stay plugged away to Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Subscribe today. Join the party as we're covering the Seahawks like no one else is. Turn notifications so you never miss a moment. YouTube.com/SeahawksTV. Jaden says Kenneth Walker III was robbed at the NFL Honors. Yeah, you certainly could have made a case for him to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. You could argue that Tariq Woolen was also robbed as well, with him not being the Defensive Rookie of the Year. That ultimately went to Sauce Gardner. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, I know a lot of people make a big deal about what guy won what award and who was robbed and all that, but what matters is championships and winning football games. Kenneth Walker, that's what he cares about. Everybody knows Kenneth Walker's a really good football player, and he's got a bright future. Sure, he could have made his case to be Rookie of the Year, but that's at the end of the day, that's not what's important here. Kenneth Walker, he's going to be just fine. He'll get the recognition he deserves. Gail writes, should we sign an Eagles player like Javon Hargrave or James Bradbury? Let me hold on to that idea. See what I did there? James Bradbury, I think, is a very interesting one. James Bradbury, you look at him, and he had a nice bounce-back year after his time with the New York Giants. I think he's going to have a decent price tag, though. Javon Hargrave, same thing. I think Javon Hargrave's not going to be cheap. I don't know if the Seahawks would have the money for either one of these guys. I think you would like, if you could bring them in, you feel great. You're like, okay, that was nice. That'll work. But if it doesn't work that way, if you just don't have the funds to, then I think we understand. But I do like both players, but I don't know financially if that is going to work. AJ says, if the Rams are sellers this offseason, could we trade for Bobby Wagner? Oh, it's funny you ask. Let's be real with y'all. Bobby is not happy with the Seahawks these days. He did not like how things ended. And understandably so. I mean, they caught him, you know. He felt like he was disrespected. And that's part of the reason why he went to a division rival. The Rams might be sellers. There's been talk about them trading Jalen Ramsey potentially. Questions about Matt Stafford's future and all that. I understand where y'all are coming from. I think we can all humbly admit it was a mistake to cut Bobby Wagner last year when he's arguably the best linebacker in the league still. Having Bobby Wagner right now would be really nice. But I don't think the Rams want to make the Seahawks better, and I don't think Bobby wants anything to do with the Seahawks right now. I think there's still some bad blood, and he's not happy with the organization. So I just don't see that happening. I'd like Bobby Wagner in Seattle, but that just doesn't seem realistic. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live, talking about your Seattle Seahawks there. I'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today. Okay, just about done here. We're almost about to call the show for today. But chime in the comment section. Buy or sell DK Metcalf as a top 10 receiver in this league. Chugsy, what say you?
Ooh, that's so tough. I mean, just thinking of guys, it's just like guys off the top of my head over DK Metcalf. You can tell me agree or disagree. Jamar Chase.
Okay.
Over him.
Yep.
Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
Stephon Diggs.
Yep. That's 3.
Do you put Mike Evans?
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb?
Yes.
A.J. Brown?
Close. Depends on the day, kind of.
I think DK's in that 8 to 12 range. I'm just not sure.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to think of more guys.
I think he makes in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean,
but the bottom half of it.
Definitely over him. Devontae Adams from this past season.
Right.
He's over him.
Tyreek Hill.
Yep. That's another one. So that's what I'm saying. I think he's in the fringe top 10. I think he's 8 to 12, maybe 8 to 14, and just
I'll say this though.
It's hard.
As far as that top 10 conversation goes, and Chugs, I bet you'll agree with me on this. We are right now in the National Football League at as good of an era as it's ever been at the receiver position.
Yeah.
I mean, borderline top 10 right now.
I mean, Cooper Kupp, I would take over him.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp too. I mean, Tyler Lockett had a better year than him on his own
team.
Top 10 right now is production level and talent-wise. All of those are the top 10 receivers are as good as usually what a top 5 year.
And then you have sleepers like Amon-Ra St. Brown had an insane year.
Right.
DJ Moore from the Panthers. I mean, guys on bad teams who played well.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. It's just I don't know.
Yeah. We're about to wrap up and go. Let's go to the Super Chat menu real quick. I'll put a minute on the clock. If we get a $20 Super Chat, we stay live. If not, we sign off. We call it a day, and we'll see you next week. $20 Super Chat, we stay on. Dirty D says DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins, he's still good, but he's not as good as he once was.
Yeah.
Still very good, but he's taken a step back, clearly.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, I actually had him in mind. Right now, it's hard because he has kind of taken a little step down. I don't know if that's because, obviously,
got caught with those PEDs.
Got caught with PEDs, and it's funny. It's not a coincidence. Him and Will Fuller, former Houston Texans teammates, both train with the same guy, both popped with PEDs after injuries.
Right. $20 Super Chat, we stay on.
Let's see. Jaden Hill says, these guys over DK. Tyree Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Diggs, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adams, Evans, Cooper Kupp, and then he has DK.
Okay. 1 minute to go. We are 137 away from Das Boot.
Yeah.
And $100 Boot Hall of Fame. $20 Super Chat, we stay on. Otherwise, we sign off.
And then, where do you put Keenan Allen?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then guys, obviously, Garrett Wilson. I don't know. M. Grubb says ESPN has DK at number 16 in receiving yards. Oh, so that's just
yards.
Yeah, ESPN doesn't have that's
not ESPN's yards. That's just yards.
Yeah, that's just where his stats line up. But then stats can be deceiving, you know.
Right.
A lot of Deontay Johnson for the Steelers, pretty good receiver. Just smashed the record in the NFL for most receptions without a touchdown this year.
Right.
He's still a good receiver, but I mean, you see him, you're like, oh, 0 touchdowns this year? Oh, I don't know.
Right. Very good point. All right, time's up. Final poll results. Should the Seahawks trade the number 20th pick like I did in our mock draft? 59% of you say no.
Oh.
They shouldn't trade it. What did you think of that trade I made? Would you have taken that trade at 20?
I think as long as you're getting a first-rounder next year, because the Seahawks –
which I did. I got the Bears first.
Geno's a good quarterback. I think he's going to be a stopgap guy for a couple seasons. But I think next year, guys, like if you could get one of those top quarterbacks, that will set you up to be the front runner in the NFC West for years to come.
Yeah.
Because you have a bunch of young guys already. You have your 2 bookend tackles, a good running back, a young stud wide receiver in DK. Noah Fant's pretty young. I believe what is he, 25, 26?
Right.
You have a lot of young guys. If you could add a young quarterback to that nucleus.
Yeah.
And then from there, you just build in free agency. Maybe make a couple trades. You could, I don't know.
All right, guys, we got to run. Jeremy, always a pleasure, my friend. We will see you all next week. Stay tuned to the channel and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for joining us.